Hello, Paola. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you. Really glad to be
Good.
here. Yeah.
Same here, and thank you for being on the show. This is great to have you. So thank you so much for being here.
Oh, my pleasure. Yes. So pleased.
Great, great. So I like to start my show with a little rapid fire question. So it's kind of like 5 questions, just for my audience to get to know you a little bit. These are fun. These are quick. So how does that sound?
Perfect. Sounds
Awesome.
interesting.
So the first one, and they're easy. So,
Okay.
so the first one is, where did you grow up?
I grew up in North Vancouver. I was born in Italy, but we went to Italy often when I was little, and I grew up in North Van, and I've been in Canada since, yes.
And can I ask really quick, what part of Italy?
I was born in Milan.
Oh,
Milan,
nice.
yes, yeah.
Okay.
So I know both languages, English and Italian, and it's been awesome to know that language, honestly. Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. I'm just going to be a little personal here. So my husband is from the Pistons of, no, of Rome. He's
Oh,
first
wow.
generation. So his family, most of his family lives there still. So it's kind of, we haven't visited in a while, but I love Italy.
It's amazingly beautiful, isn't it? Yes.
Yes, I
Yeah.
haven't been to Milan yet, so that's a part that is on our list, though.
Yeah. I mean, I think a person could spend a lifetime there looking at the places. There's so many places away from the tourist areas.
Yeah,
So you may have already experienced some of that.
just a little,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's still on our list to visit. So
Yeah.
I can't wait.
Yeah. Oh, I don't blame you.
So, where do you live now?
Right now I'm in Nanaimo, British Columbia. So I've kind of traveled through Canada in my career pursuits. I've lived in Saskatchewan and I've lived in Ontario, and I made my way back to BC. I don't know how much you know about BC. For me, it's beautiful, beautiful place. So the climate's a little more temperate, not as cold as the other places in Canada. So I'm here to stay.
Nice. Yeah,
Yeah,
the weather does make a difference.
huge difference. Yeah.
Okay, great. Do they speak French in that area or no?
No, French is in the Quebec area, but in
Okay.
Ontario, there's much more of an expectation that people be bilingual with French and English,
Okay.
but not in BC. We're primarily English. Yes.
English. Got it. And you in Italian, so there you go.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Nice. So the third question I have is, who are your two top mentors?
One of my top mentors that he's now a retired psychologist. His name is Lee Poulos, and he was the president, also a mentor of mine that I actually sought out. He was the president of the Hypnosis Society, really highly published, but an amazing human being. He was full of inspiration for people. He retired when he was 90. Um,
Wow.
so he also started here a place called the Spaghetti Factory. And one of the reasons he was my mentor is his thinking was very expansive. I mean, we have the traditional psychologist, but he was much more than that. I know he went to Brazil, and he studied some very unique phenomenon in Brazil, a little bit in the quantum physics realm. So I would say he's definitely one of my mentors. He's probably my primary one. I have lots of, uh, I guess, public figures that I respect and admire, but he would be my one that I actually sought out and used as a mentor. And some local psychologists that I have here that have also been really expansive in their thinking. So I like the out of the box
Yeah.
thinking. I love the profession of psychology, but I also like to look a little bit beyond just, we have a very rational approach to treatment,
Mm.
based on research, which it should be.
Mhm.
But now there's also other realms where we're sort of integrating. So I don't know if I have a second one to give you as much as
It's okay.
Lee was my one big one. Yeah. I mean, he's now, if you go on to Amazon, he's got, because since he's retired, they've published a lot of his hypnosis audios for a
Oh,
very
wow.
reasonable price. So for anyone that's interested, they might want to look him up there. Yeah.
What's his name again?
His name is Lee Pulos, Pulos.
Okay.
And he's done a lot. He's published a lot. So he's someone I really respected. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll put his information in the show notes, and maybe some books. I'll link that up too so people could take a
Yeah.
look.
I think that'd be great. Yeah.
Awesome. So then the fourth question that I have is, what are you most passionate about?
Um, you know, I've been in this profession a long time. There's probably two things I'd say I'm passionate about. But for me, it's about having that growth mindset and that uh, being in a place where where we learn to face challenges in life. I think it's it's something that we all have to do. Every one of us is on this journey to try and figure things out. So I love indulging in everything that has to do with our own development in life. So, and I think the other realm for me has always been just music and fitness, because I did teach fitness for many years. I'm still very engaged in it. I've done running, I've done, some half marathons and marathon, and it's and music. So those of I did dance, Spanish dance, and belly dancing at a certain phases in my life. So that's completely different realm, but it's been these two passions I've been engaged in my life. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Wow, that's great. And it's kind of like, it sounds like you have a zest for life. So it's like the adventure, the zest, you have that movement in it as well, the
Yes,
music. So you put your whole mind and body into your life.
completely. Yes.
Yes.
It's
Very
necessary,
good.
I think, Yeah. Yes, absolutely. The reason I love a lot of the things that I'm doing around this is because it it moves you away from that place of complacency in life. We have moments in life, we can't always be exciting, but I think we can fall into complacency.
Yeah.
And so I love doing this work, and including even in the fitness realm, because it alters our state and allows us to appreciate life a little bit more. Yeah,
Nice. That's a way to live.
that's the way to live.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so the last question I have is, what is your superpower?
I would say for me, it's my empathic abilities when I'm working with my clients. It's an ability that I think you develop over time
Mhm.
in reading nuances that people might otherwise overlook. And it's that extra sensory ability to see things that maybe most of us don't pay attention to. And I found that to be really amazingly helpful, but also something that you develop. um, I would say maybe some people have an organic ability more in that realm,
Mhm.
but it is something that allows you to relate to people in different ways when you have that. So yeah,
Great.
yeah,
That's beautiful. And it does work well with what you do as a
it's
psychologist. It's like
necessary,
hand in
necessary,
hand.
absolutely necessary. Yeah, yeah.
Great. So let's start in the beginning. Tell
Hmm.
us a little bit about your background and why you became a psychologist.
Oh, that's a good question. When I was a teenager, my mother got into the human potential movement, and that was in the 80s. And in the 80s, they were doing a lot of, psychology really is fairly still new. People, I don't know if people realize, in the 50s, was when Freud started in psychoanalysis. And then we have come so far from that point. And so in the 80s, they were still really kind of establishing the profession. But a lot of groups started in the 80s. They call it, the human potential movement, and a lot of it was that. I'm not saying it's a fad. they integrated Eastern approaches, but there were some questions about these groups that were very, in some cases, I'm not going to say they were shaming, but they used approaches to have people change that I thought sometimes I had some questions about. And I loved the inquiries that were happening in that stage, but I really wanted to understand a more research-based approach, to better be able to assess what these things were at that time. And I also, fortunately, I started self-hypnosis when I was 19 years of age. I did that for about a year. And that also spurred my interest because it was so life-changing. I really started changing my patterns of thinking, it was pretty amazing. And I just, that definitely drew me into the profession and wanting to know more and understanding it.
So then why did you start the self hypnosis? What brought you to do that?
Nothing I looked for, actually. I was in Italy at the time. I was living there for about a year, and my mother sent me some material and a book and some audios, and I had a lot of time on my hands then. I know I was tutoring. So I started this process with, you started with some guided, and then I did an individual. And I just took to it. I loved it. I loved that. I looked forward to it every day. And it's, what's interesting is, today, I still do self hypnosis and I still do that work. I never, as much as I did then, I was doing a few a day. I was
Wow.
completely immersing myself in it. I loved the way it felt, and it really altered my state. Coming out of a teenage angst, it kind of grounded me. And, after a year, I found it transformative. I wasn't even expecting it to be that. I just was enjoying the process of doing it. Yeah.
Yeah, and the feeling. Yeah.
And changing really thinking patterns, because I know as teenagers, if you actually look at the average teenager, their thinking patterns are off. We don't know how to, they engage in comparison, and they have their self-esteem issues, and a tendency to uh, you know compare yourself to other human people, right? And
Yeah.
where you're still developing your identity.
Yeah.
So it really was good in solidifying sort of a really healthier way of thinking from that age. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. It's interesting. I was just talking last week with a hypnotist, and he does self hypnosis as well.
Yes.
So it sounds like something that everybody should do. you
I
know?
honestly think so. And I mean, what is really, when we're young, and this is, when we're young, we are more open, and we don't have the baggage that we have as we get older. And so, the brain, the frontal lobe, this part of the brain in the front, doesn't really finish developing until we're 25 years of age.
Oh,
So our brains are really, really, it's a great time for, I think, if we were able to teach,
yeah.
teenagers this at that age when they're still developing their identity.
Yeah.
I think it would be amazing if there was some real training in those early years for people to do
I do
that.
too. I could
Yeah,
see, I mean, yeah, we're our brain and everything, we're like a sponge. We kind of take in, everything that's coming in, and what
absolutely.
better way? I mean, not just, self-hypnosis, but meditation and
Absolutely.
all the help that we could, bring to them.
Absolutely.
What better way to do it than really try and struggle and work with it when we're, older, because it is
Absolutely.
a struggle.
It is.
So yeah,
It is a struggle. Yeah. So and if people can do that earlier, it's a little bit easier to incorporate, because those are such formative years.
yeah,
I think sometimes people that maybe start exposing themselves when they're older, they have many more, let's say, habits in thinking, and
Mm.
our thinking patterns are habitual. I mean, I don't know that we have a full grasp of reality, because a lot of what we develop was taught to us from our initial years, and we end up living in this small bubble of not being aware of what other potentials are out there, right? So but I don't think it matters what age, which is, we can do it at any age. Actually, my mentor, Dr. Poulos, one of the things he kind of termed it as, we have thickness in a belief. You have a if you have a limiting negative belief, and it's something you've carried with you for a long time, and especially if there's been some trauma based on it, it becomes a core belief. And a core belief is a little bit, takes more work.
Yeah.
I mean, I absolutely know we can change them, but it's an active effort to make that happen
Yeah.
rather than passive. We can wait for that change, but you know um, for example, if I have a traumatic encounter, our beliefs often change once we've had something negative happen to us, and often it shapes us in a more limiting way, and we end up feeling kind of constrained by those old, more limiting beliefs.
Yeah.
So that's why I think it's important to do this work actively. If you find something's not working in your life, to take that time and figure out what it is that's holding you back in your life,
Yeah.
and find out what the beliefs are around that.
Yeah, I agree. It's taking all that baggage, all those years, and just piling on. But and I
Yes.
always say this in every episode or most of the episodes, because my audience is, women over 40, it's
Mm.
never too late. So, when we're 40, it's like, I'm too old. But
Yes.
it's never too late and you're never too old. So, yeah, even if it is harder and more time, it's well worth it.
I actually think it's essential for us to do a little bit of reexamination in our lives at certain points. And
Yeah.
I think when we do reach our 40s and 50s, those are years where we might start looking more at our lives and whether we were fulfilled or not. So, those are more introspective years, when we're looking at our future
Yeah.
and then we're looking at our past. And I've worked with people of all ages, and I can tell you that there's no boundary there that says you cannot develop or shift and grow and learn. I think what I would like people to understand is that in the absence of doing anything, we tend to stay the same, and that applies to all of us. And if we just stay with our default, but what I really want people to know is we're a bit of a quick fix society, and I don't know that we understand the concept really of cultivating something different in us. So what I see people do is they start, and if they don't notice changes right away, they get discouraged and give up. But that applies to a lot of things. That could be fitness, that could be in any arena. And I just wish there would be a way for people to know that there's a stick to it factor,
Mhm.
that if you do, things start shifting over time. And that's why, there's maybe a little bit of faith that goes into this as you pursue it for a bit. But the change will happen as you continue on that path, and just let those new habits, give them time to integrate. And that would be my one advice I'd want people to understand, is give yourself some time. Don't, it's okay if you still slip into old patterns.
Yeah.
um, but keep at it, and find the right ingredients, and then you'll eventually get there. And I think that's really important for people to know.
Yeah. I firmly believe in that.
Yeah.
And I think, having a psychologist or even a health coach helps with that too. Because, behavior change is hard. is hard, and it gets harder, like I said, as you get older. But
Yes.
having that person, kind of being your accountability person, or even kind of asking the questions, the hard questions, and having them understand themselves that they have it within them.
Yes.
So, and I think with doing it that way, I think more people have a sustainable
Uh,
success.
yeah.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
and I agree. Nothing's ever. First of all, you develop all of these habits, all of these, either waking or whatever it is, you develop it over time. It's not
Yeah.
like it happened overnight. So why are we thinking that we can change our behavior or change something overnight as well? So I think, yeah,
Absolutely. You know, a really nice book, if I could recommend that. I don't
sure.
remember the author's name, but the book is called Atomic Habits.
Okay.
Atomic Habits.
I
I've
think
got,
I heard of it. I haven't
yeah.
read it.
Well, it's a really good book because it really, I think again, we always start with, I hear people say things, I tried that and it didn't work, or I tried this and it didn't work, and then they give up. But really, when we're looking for change, he really talks about in this book our identity, and as we tend to identify with our habits and they become an integral part of our identity. That's why it's harder to change it, because we see that as being who we are.
Yeah.
And but really, the way he describes it is good for people that want to try to change something in their lives, because he really is outlines the fact that when we're working towards change, we're really working on changing things that happen very automatically for us. And once something has been programmed in us, it becomes our default. And so as you're working towards changing it, you can even start small. It doesn't have to be monumental changes. And I know people might not be as excited by that, but I actually think that that is what is the building block of creating larger changes. If we can start by changing one habit, you're already on your way. And you can move that into other realms, and habits become part of what we think is our character. But I think over time that can definitely change if you continue on that process. But that is a good book for anyone that's saying, I want to change something. And he breaks it down and helps people understand some strategies to actually making those changes.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. Yeah, I'll link it up in the show notes. So thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. My pleasure.
So as we transition now, it's actually kind of setting it up for, really my audience obviously is, women over 40, and we're dealing with a lot of aging at this point.
Yes.
So we're here in aging, and then, I kind of want to, put it in the mix of ageism. So I think
Yes.
aging and ageism. So talk to me a little bit about your perception. And let's first start with aging. And if ageism comes up, then that's great. But what is your perception in aging and what you've seen women specifically go through?
I mean, this has a huge history to it. The women's relationship to aging, even if you look at the media and how women are presented in the media historically. I remember years ago reading a book called The Beauty Myth, and it was really by Naomi Wolf. It was really about our cultures and our culture's view and valuing of women. And women have been traditionally valued primarily for their aesthetics, for their appearance. And I think our economy has thrived off it, because the more insecure a woman is, the more she's going to spend time on a lot of, self-improvement projects, right? For making herself, her appearance. So there's monetary value in our society tied to it, but I think there's a lot of other dynamics tied to it.
Mhm.
And I think it historically, I think it's been and even presently, something that we all are trying to run away from and get away from. So I think generally we have a fairly negative perspective or negative attitudes about what it means for in our valuing of self as we get older and as our appearance changes. And I think I mentioned in one of my shows, historically, newscasters, they get fired. And that would make it essential for them to go into surgery and try doing things to keep themselves looking a certain way. So we have a long history around it. And I think that while there's some changes, I believe that we just have lots of intergenerational messaging that's happened. And I still think it's very present with us and for women. And I'm hoping that's why I think these conversations are important, because I'm hoping that when we change these conversations, we will become the messengers of a reality. We are those messengers. So we're the receivers, but we're also the ones who are creating the reality.
Yeah.
And if we don't change the way we're looking at things, especially around aging, then it's going to be really hard for us to ever change anything. And so I want these conversations to happen because aging is different today than it was years ago. We live longer.
Yeah.
Women have, and I want to believe that women in their 40s and 50s and 60s and 70s
Yeah.
can continue to thrive and be essential, valued members of society. Yeah.
And not have to, yeah, and I agree, and not have to alter either your physical appearance or your mental appearance, your mental cognition or thinking, not having to alter any of that, because and I see it too, you see it either like models, or if you see it on TV, and then it's kind of like it's a hypocrisy, really.
Yes.
The men, oh yeah, they could gain the weight, they could look old, it's fine. And
Yes.
as soon as a woman like has a wrinkle or a gray hair, it's
Yes.
like, oh my gosh, she's getting old.
Yes.
And I noticed though, and I don't know about you, but I've noticed that it's not as bad,
Yeah.
but it's still out there. I think, still women, as society, and that long time of, I need to look a certain way, I need to, act a certain way.
Yes.
It has things are changing, but it's like you said, I think we have to have that mental dialogue.
Yes.
Yeah. And speak more about that, like the mental part of it. How can we help ourselves get out of that, out of that thinking?
Yeah. Well, one of the things I often do when I'm trying to help people kind of identify what's happening for them is it's important for any one of us that is maybe as we're getting older to start really paying attention to what your thought process is, because some of those thought processes are going to be very automatic. And I hear it in people as they're getting older. Statements such as, yeah, that's it for me, there's not much I can do right now, I'm getting old. Like, so there's a dialogue about our potential and lack thereof that starts to happen at a certain age, and I do see that in a lot of people. Now, what I do believe is that there's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Now, the World Health Organization has recognized ageism, and if you go on to the World Health Organization, you'll find out information there. But what we found is they found that people with ageism as an attitude also tend to die earlier, about 7 years earlier than ones that have a positive attitude about aging. And we know that if you have a negative attitude around your own aging, that it will add to depression and anxiety and fear and maladaptive behaviors. What I think we don't realize is that when we start to, um, you know, let's say, buy into a lot of limiting beliefs about what we can do and who we can be and what our worth is, that actually has an impact on our physiology. It affects our energy, our vibrancy. A thought, for me, either feeds or depletes. And and we need to take time. And if you're fatigued and unmotivated and feeling down and depressed, that would be a sign that you need to really start thinking about what is happening inside you right now, and take time to do that inventory, because chances are you're going to start seeing that there's some thought process that's happening. And we have to first identify that it's happening. First, you need to recognize it. And then what I do is I work on pulling out beliefs that someone is carrying. They may not always consciously be aware that that is a belief they're carrying. And the reason we have these conversations is because it gives the platform to start to examine automatic thought processes. And I do hypnosis, as I've done it, but I've also specialized in hypnosis. And I think we have cultural hypnoses, and for me, it's that all that information that tends to become a part of us. And we need to sort of stop, take inventory, look at what those thoughts and beliefs are. I frame them as limiting beliefs. But what I do is I have people identify what they are. And then I have them identify what are empowering beliefs. What would be a counter belief to that? I know one of the challenges, for example, if women end up finding themselves divorced and they're in their 40s, or they're going through, or they lose a partner, there might be things that happen that are going to amplify those thoughts, the fears, right? If you're by yourself and single, and all the fears that women have about that. And that is really important to start, changing those attitudes, because once they see themselves, some women see themselves as not viable, not attractive. And I would argue that in absolute form. And I think it is changing our own perspective about beauty and viability. And it has to start with us. And then I think once it starts with us, that's what we project into the world, and we can start, you know, creating a new reality about what it means to get older.
Isn't the mind a great thing?
It's an amazing
It's
thing. Yeah,
amazing, it just has so much power,
it really
and
does.
it can either, hurt us or help us. And,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah,
Yes.
that's great. So I just have, a question that kind of ties into it. But we don't have to kind of go into detail, but how many of those patients that you see, for the aging, or that you hear, how many of them have come in? Or actually, I guess the question is, are there a lot of women who are afraid of aging? Do you see them going down the perfectionism path or the disordered eating path? Like, is there a huge correlation with those?
Um, that's a good question. I don't know that I would necessarily say that it may or may not be. They may end up having some issues around, body image and food intake, and more activities on trying to improve self. And I think it's all part of that package of wanting to prevent a fear, and to allay fears that were no longer worth it or viable. And so I think the other thing that can happen when we touch on fears, because I do think some of it is and existential issues that we run into, and especially if you see parents getting ill and getting sick, that we can tap into pre-existing states when we were in fear. So if I had, let's say, a period in my life, and teenagers might have experiences where they don't feel worthy because it's part of developing your identity is negotiating identity when you're young. That when we find ourselves a little older, we can get vulnerable and experience a vulnerability, and we can tap into previously existing fears. And so when we are in a fear state, that and we've had that experience in the past, it's not unusual to reacquire some states that we had previously experienced.
Yeah.
um, and it might be eating, but it could be something else too. It could be an addiction, or it could be. So I think what I would say is we get more vulnerable when we start to deal with these issues around worth and aging to previously existing struggles that we've had.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm a living, breathing person of going through that. So,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
a past trauma, and then, coming up as, recently. So it's
it,
definitely, it's definitely a daily, I don't want to say struggle, but it's a daily, like, you almost have to work on it daily. you
yes,
know
yeah,
um your mental acuity, and just understanding and going through the positive, positive mental talk,
yes, yeah,
mind, and being mindful of how you are talking to yourself, I
yes.
think is key. Yeah.
Well, because I know that if we've had past trauma, we are more vulnerable in the future to previous, if we've experienced a state in our lives, it's not, it's in our repertoire, let's put it that way. So if I've had an experience in the past, that repertoire is already in me. It doesn't take a lot for me to reaccess it.
Yeah.
And if you think, when we're in fear states, that we're no longer feeling safe at the base of it, there's a decreased sense of safety and control in life.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to reestablish that sense of safety and control in our lives. And we do it through a lot of different means, right?
Yeah.
And everyone will channel it into whatever has been relevant for them when they reach a certain point of vulnerability. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Wow, so powerful.
it is. It is. But I think one of the things I do want people to understand is, while I'm all about changing beliefs, um, I know that it's one of the reasons it's hard when we're trying to change it just on a cognitive level,
Right.
is that there can be a disparity between what I'm thinking and what I'm feeling.
Yeah.
And I might be telling myself, in using my daily affirmations, that I'm worthy and I'm a great person, but it might not be in sync with something I actually feel inside. Maybe I'm actually racked with doubt. And for me, what the real key is not just keeping those thoughts at the head level,
Right.
but bringing them into the heart level. And that's when a belief is transformed. And so what you want is to bring that conscious belief, and you want to bring it into your subconscious belief. And that's why you're saying it takes daily.
Yeah.
It's because it's your repetition is one of the ways that you over time will start allowing something to sink in. But another way, I believe, is through self-hypnosis.
Mm.
And that might mean, all that really means is that when you're in a relaxed state, so if I go into an altered state and
Mm.
I'm in a very deeply relaxed state, I am more receptive, and information will can touch me a little bit deeper than, let's say, if I'm just telling myself positive things every day, but inside I'm going, no, I don't know if I believe that.
Right.
Right? We can have these internal battles, and a lot of the work I do is dealing with the internal battles and helping that person not ignore that limiting way of thinking, but working on ways to address it, to understand what that might be serving, so that then you can start to be more accepting of something positive. Because I think that is the biggest thing. It's not really just changing what I'm consciously thinking, but internalizing it as a truth that I live. And that's when you know you're on a good path, right? When that happens. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I can understand that. It's like it's not just words anymore. It's actual heart. It's
It's
actual,
actual heart. Absolutely.
yeah, yeah,
And
great.
yeah.
Wow, you know what, Paula, this has been a great conversation. And again, thank you for being on. I could talk to you forever.
Oh, yeah, sure.
I love psychology. I actually I took a modern applied psychology course. So
Oh, no.
it's like I am all about psychology. So I can definitely talk to you for hours. But I
Oh,
know we don't have the time today.
we don't have the, I don't know if people have the patience to listen
Well,
for
that too.
hours.
Just sit and listen for 3 hours.
Absolutely.
But I want to just ask you, where can people find you?
They can find me certainly on my, I have two websites. One of them is the Dr. Lake Show, which is a link to my own podcast. I do have my practice website, which is drlake.ca.
Okay.
But, and as much as I'm not currently, I've got a huge wait list, and sort of, we're kind of full here with I don't know that COVID has caused the wait list. It's been around for a while, but certainly if someone's interested in looking and seeing a little bit more about what I do, they're welcome to go online and take a peek.
Great. Well, that sounds like a good problem to have, I would think.
Yeah, pretty good. I mean, it's an intense career,
Yeah,
and so no matter what, we have to, self-care is probably number one, because
yeah.
I'm like, if we can't take care of ourselves, it's really hard to take care of others, right? And
Oh, yeah.
so you temper the work with other things to keep a nice healthy balance. So
Yes, exactly. And I say boundaries is key to happiness. So,
boundaries are freedom.
yes, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great, great. Well, I just want to acknowledge you, Paula, for, showing up and doing what you do to help others and also help yourself. You're very, like you said, you're very empathic, but you're also very knowledgeable and very aware of, feelings, thinkings and all of that. So I want to acknowledge you of how you show up in life too. So that's a
I
great,
appreciate that. That's really
yeah.
nice.
Great. Well,
Thank
it's the
you
truth.
for
So
having me. Thank you for having me. I
you're
appreciate that.
welcome.
And I do
Yeah.
wish you the best in your ventures as well here. So
Oh, thank
yeah,
you. Thank
yeah.
you. But I always end, I have one last question though. You're not off
Okay.
the hook yet.
Yes.
I ask all my guests this as well. If you could leave us with one thought or any words of wisdom, what would that be?
My one thought is that if you find yourself feeling um, despairing or stuck, not knowing how to move forward, um, to move beyond complacency, and don't just stay with what you're experiencing. I mean, it's okay to go through it. I don't want anyone to judge themselves for it, but I think there are other ways, and there are other ways for us to live our lives. And if you haven't found it, to find a resource that's going to help you move past that stuck point, because that stuck point isn't where you should be. I think we should be continually growing and moving. So I don't want people to give up hope, and to keep reaching out, and hopefully you'll find that key. It's like looking for a key.
Oh, that's beautiful. I cannot say it any better. So thank
Thank you.
you so much, Paula. This is
Thank you.
great.
It was great to see you and meet you, and take care.
Yes, you too. Thank
Thank you
you.
so much. Take care.
Bye.
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 Bye.